This is the Grow Your Clinic podcast from Clinic Mastery. We help progressive health professionals to lead inspired teams, transform client experiences, and build clinics for good. Now, it's time to grow your clinic.
Welcome back to another episode of the Grow Your Clinic podcast. My name is Jack O'Brien. I'm your host. I hope you are well in and through this season. Maybe you're driving, maybe you're exercising. However you're listening to this episode, we just want to say thank you. I really appreciate you tuning in and sharing your attention with us for the next 25 minutes or so for a fireside chat as we put the spotlight on more clinic owners. We're in this little mini-series of shining a light on clinic owners who are doing remarkable jobs growing their clinic and building a clinic for good. And today is one of the best. I am absolutely stoked to welcome to the podcast the co-founder of Proactive Health and Movement and legend podiatrist, Daniel Monteleone. Welcome, mate. How are you?
Thank you so much, Jack. Very exciting to be here, and I'm going really well. Can't wait to talk some more and see what we uncover today.
I think we will have plenty of rabbit holes to go down and threads to pull on. It's going to be a lot of fun. Before we get there, mate, I've got a couple of opening icebreakers for you. Are you ready to go rapid fire?
Let's do it.
All right. Number one, what are you reading or learning right now?
At the moment, I'm rereading a book called Meditations, which is the autobiography, if you like, of a man called Marcus Aurelius, who was a Roman Empire back in the 15th century. And it's one I go back to from time to time. Very good read. And I really like that because it's drawing on what he's learned from other people and putting that together so he can make sense of that. And I just think it's one that helps me make sense of many things. So I love that book. Right. And I'm learning at the moment a little bit more about pizza making, one of my loves. We've recently built an outdoor pizza oven and just learning our oven because they're all different. So learning where the hot spots are and how it heats up and those sorts of things. So having a ball.
I love it, mate. I'll take that as an invite around for a wood-fired pizza, right?
Absolutely.
Once
and a vino too.
Passes and we can get on a plane.
Yeah, one day.
One day. Yeah, Marcus Aurelius. I love the Stoics. That's awesome, mate. So thank you for sharing. Number two, who inspires you?
Yeah, I draw my inspiration, I guess you could say, from lots of people. So I try and always learn. And there's something that you can learn off everyone. And so doing a bit more thought on that, I think back to my family, to my parents, my grandparents. I was drummed into me from a very young age from my grandparents, all the lessons that they really wanted me to learn. And I think that there was a bit of resilience instilled in there just from, your typical migration story and always finding a way to succeed and overcome. And I still speak to one of my grandmothers, my nonna, who lives in New York. And I speak to her every couple of weeks. She's still at it. She's still giving me all those words of encouragement. And I love it. It's amazing.
So good. Number three, what did you want to be growing up?
It's a tough question because I always had trouble with this question, even as a child. So whenever I got asked that question, my immediate thought was, well, I don't want to be one thing. How can I get around this? Or, how do I know the answer to that? I found it very difficult to kind of commit. Yeah, I guess I see myself as someone who isn't one thing. And I was pretty pleased, actually, because someone asked my son that exact question recently. And he said, well, I can be this and I can be that and I can be many things. So that made me pretty happy, actually.
That's awesome. And what's a motto that you live by, mate?
Yeah, so I think just on that sort of line about, what can we learn from others, I think that there really is something to learn from everybody. And I think if you step back and reflect on all your interactions and every situation, that there's so much that can be learned out there with a bit more reflection. So that's something that really, I guess I live my life by.
Yeah, and I've seen that for a number of years now. That lifelong learner commitment is unreal. I love it. All right, so just through the journey then, from the kid who never really knew how to answer the question through to becoming how did you end up as a toenail cutter?
Mate, that is an awesome question. If we go way back when, I think, not really knowing what to do. And right at the start where I probably drew some lessons upon reflection, I dropped out of high school when I was in year 10. I spent most of that year out of high school and tried a few different jobs and learned a lot through that experience of thinking that that was definitely going to go a certain way, and it didn't.
Right.
And the outcome of that was to go back to school after that year off. And I got pretty serious about school and my reasons for being there and the intent.
Mm-hmm.
And towards, getting into BCE, I was quite passionate and interested in biology and learning more about the body.
Right.
And so I had a feeling that I would want to get into healthcare, and having that perspective, I guess, of not just jumping into one thing and never really being comfortable about choosing one thing, having the reflection of trying many different jobs while I was off and not enjoying those very much at all, I decided to try many off my own bat. So it was recommended that we do some work experience, go away and choose one thing and do that for 2 weeks. And I decided I didn't like that idea. So I did do that. But I also spent some time in my own time, of evenings and also on weekends, where I got in touch with business owners and clinics, and I asked to spend some time there with them and see if I could get something from my own personal reflection of being there, an experience of being there, and then make an informed decision.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side of that, I did a bit of research into job opportunities and what careers were like. And I decided that podiatry would be a good way to go, and I'd give it a try. And if I changed my mind, I could always do that too. But I stuck with it, and I've loved it ever since.
Yeah, right. That's very interesting. What is it about podiatry that you love?
That's a really good question. And I think it just comes down to helping people. So, almost anyone, I think, could answer that question in their own profession the same way. And I love, particularly for the work that I do, someone who's got usually a large problem that's looking for an answer and has maybe had a little bit of trouble with that, to wanting to learn more, and taking someone who's having a bit of a hard time and empowering them and educating them and watching them grow and watching them develop and live their lives in a way that really fulfills them. And then they're able to go out and have a bigger impact on all the people around them. That's really about why I come to work, and now what I'm learning also about being a business owner and leading a team.
So we're going to get to being a business owner and team leadership and all those elements shortly. Before we do, you've been on the therapist side of the bed or the plinth, and you've also been on the patient side. You've got a bit of a story in chronic pain. Do you want to step us through that? Pardon the pun.
Yeah. So, early on in my career, I would have thought, if someone had asked me, are you a good podiatrist? I would have said, yes, I'm a very good podiatrist.
As we all do when we're new grads, right?
For sure. And, move forwards a few years into my career, probably 5 or 6 years or so, I sustained a very good foot injury. I did a Liz Frank injury and broke 8 bones there in my foot. And I expected to recover just the same as I would from multiple soft tissue injuries before that. And I had my eyes on the prize of what I needed to do to get through it. And it just didn't quite go that way, Jack. So it was a long, drawn-out process. I won't go too far into the nitty-gritty of it, but my recovery from that Liz Frank fracture, where I was permanently out of the boot, was weeks down the track. We're looking like 12 weeks down the track. Yeah. And it kind of hit pretty hard. So impacted my life a little bit, but I managed to recover and get on with it, and tried to get back to the level of activity that I was used to, and to do all the things that I love doing. Meanwhile, in the background was this niggling, ongoing hip pain that, at the time, the lesson that I'd learnt was, just don't ignore the pain. Don't focus on that pain. We'll just push that out and keep moving. Yeah, that taught me a massive lesson. So I had a hip scope. I was expecting to be recovered from that again rather quickly, but it did drag on. And with some of the help or information that I got, I started becoming very unsure and didn't know what the outcome would be. And 5 months down the track, I was still using crutches to get around, having quite a difficult time moving around, lots of fear. Yeah, not a very good outlook. So it was a pretty dark spot, and my life was being faced with many, many challenges at the time. Yeah, physically, mentally, financially, and just sort of questioning everything, including my own career and whether I thought I was a good podiatrist if I couldn't help myself through this or understand this well enough. And eventually I got on to a fantastic group of practitioners, fantastic clinic that helped me. And, in a very short amount of time, I was back walking without the crutches, and I was pushing into loading and running and doing all the things that I wanted to do. And it was a really big lesson in terms of, this is the way healthcare should be done, versus quite a lot of not really hitting things at the higher level, and also me just understanding my own influence in my own recovery and how my thinking needed to change and lots of things.
So in and through that recovery process from your injury, you're still a podiatrist, right?
Yes, I am.
So you're living this strange, or at least unique duality of being a patient and being a therapist. I'm curious, how did your experiences as a patient shape your work as a therapist?
Completely shaped it. So on the other side of, my recovery, and some people that really became mentors for me in my life who were my practitioners,
right,
I realized the difference between, the people that were able to help me and the people that did their best but couldn't at the time. And it was just such a stark contrast and so different to, even my own level of education at university level. It was a real eye-opener. And there was a bit of a turning point when I was on the latter half of my recovery and feeling confident, and I knew I was going to get better. And I said to my practitioner at the time, I don't remember learning this at uni. Where did you learn this?
Right.
There are so many skills here. There's so much that you've shared with me in terms of communication. Where did you go to learn all this stuff? And, his answer to me was that university is basically your entry ticket. And from that point on, if you want to get to a high level of doing anything, you need to make a commitment and you need to study in that area. So he recommended many books, he recommended many courses, and he encouraged me to keep learning. And it just kind of made so much sense. It lit a fire. I understood where the confusion and the lack of knowledge was, and had a path forward. So I kind of made a decision that day that I was not going to be the same practitioner anymore, and that I was going to embark on learning, and the rest of my career would be pushing towards the highest level.
Love it. And so at this time, you're still a sole 100% practitioner. How did then the journey play out towards clinic ownership?
So at that point, I was a practitioner. I had to get back to work and do it full time to start with. And that was a challenge in itself. And I also had an opportunity to learn more while I was unable to practice full time.
Sure. So
I made those commitments. I got back to practicing full time. And, in the meat of all that, I'd had to close a business that I was running, put someone into a business that I was running and deliberately run at a loss, while also try to return to another job that I was running. So I was doing many things at the same time.
Right.
And I was able to get back to a sole practice part-time. I was able to get back to a job part-time. And I knew that these things would be part of the learning curve for me to get to my own clinic. On the other side of all these life lessons, my wife Lauren and I decided to make a big move. So we moved from Melbourne down to Ocean Grove, a lovely part of the world in the Geelong region. And we also knew that it was going to be an opportunity to launch into our own clinic and get set up and make a difference to our own lives and what we wanted to do in the healthcare space, but also really make a difference from that leading edge of therapy where we can make a big impact on clients' lives.
So you relocated, opened the doors, put up the shingle, and off you go. What does your clinic look like now in terms of different therapies that are offered, size of team, your role? What does Proactive look like now?
So now it's been 3 years since we opened our doors, and we have a psychology team, a physiotherapy team, a podiatry team. We have remedial massage and dietetics attached to our business. So we're offering quite a few services, looking towards more opportunities as we continue to grow.
Love it, mate. And you're a podiatrist by trade. What does an average week in the life of Daniel look like as the co-founder and essentially CEO of this clinic?
So there's an aspect of consulting, there's an aspect of leading the team, there's an aspect of really getting into the business and understanding where that is and where we're going. And also a big part of that is me being a father part-time at home throughout the week.
Okay. So you get to work from home a little bit?
Absolutely. And that's been something that has been a goal of mine over the last 18 months, and really nice to see that change there so that I get to enjoy that and have the flexibility. And amazing that we can log onto the internet and actually work from home these days. It's something that I really appreciate.
All right. So I'd love to dive into some of the lessons that you've learned along that journey, but from 3 years, essentially from scratch to now having a multidisciplinary team, helping hundreds of people a week, thousands of people across a year. How did you do it? If you're able to distill that into a couple of minutes, how did you do it, or what are some of the big principles?
Jumped in. That's how we did it. We made the decision, and we had the vision in our minds of what an amazing multidisciplinary clinic would look like, and what that meant for people who were our clients. How could we transform their lives through our business? And so we had this big vision, I guess you could say, of our clinic, and mostly kind of what it looks like today. And that was the intention. When we started, though, it didn't look like that. So when we started, our business name is Proactive Health and Movement. We wanted to make sure, although I was a podiatrist, when we started the business, it wasn't a podiatry clinic, because we had a bit of a vision of where we were going with it and what that name meant and what it stood for. And so it was a little confusing when we started, because people would say, well, what do you actually do here? And say, well, I'm a podiatrist and this is what we offer. But, it didn't take long. We started hiring and looking for team members. And although it was, largely myself and Lauren here at the very beginning, we did have 3 team members with us. So we had a massage therapist and a physiotherapist with us as we moved on to that sort of 12 to 18 month mark. And then from that 12 to 18 month mark, things really, really took it up a notch, and we were able to take a massive step forward. So that's been very nice riding that wave. And, we've been able to grow our team from 3 in the last 18 months to about 3 years now. We've been able to bring that up to 8 practitioners. We have an admin team of 3 people. They're a big support to our team. And, we're looking for the opportunity to grow from here. So we're excited about what the next 18 months and the next 3 years might look like.
Yeah, mate, it's unreal. It's phenomenal. Well done. Let's talk a little bit about branding and how you've positioned yourself. You have a beautiful brand, and like you said, you wanted Proactive to stand for something, to be known for something. In terms of brand and marketing and awareness, what are some of the things that you've done that you're really proud of that have worked in terms of that branding and attracting clients to your brand?
Yeah, so one that, Lauren will probably be very happy that I've mentioned here. About 12 months into our journey, she came to me and said, our logo needs some work. And I said, why? I designed that logo. It's amazing. It's great. I put my heart and soul into it, and nothing needs to change. And she said, well, here's a few different ideas, and have a look at this. And, you're always talking about the things that influence people's pain and the clinical evidence behind things. And what if we actually went to the effort of changing our logo and our colors to make people feel more at ease? And, well, there might actually be something in that. So it was pretty hard for me.
Got away with words, your clever wife.
I was really attached to that logo. But, yeah, she had a point. And I think that was a really big step for us, because it was about saying, okay, well, let's have a really good hard look and say, okay, well, it's not about us. Like, how can we do this better for our clients, and how can we better make an impact? And we rebranded to change our logo entirely, change our color scheme entirely. And that was a real change in the clinic. We changed our uniforms at the same time. We decided to jump in with CM and change our uniforms. And it was almost like Proactive Health and Movement 2.0, like with the knowledge that we've gained, let's reset and just go bang.
So, but I'm curious, with all respect, that's lovely, but it doesn't necessarily bring patients through the door. So how does that tie over to tangible marketing results?
Yeah, for sure. So that was always a big concern of mine as a business owner who really was and still is needing to learn a lot more. So I had no idea. My marketing, my business mind was, let's do a great job and, let that do the talking for the business.
Right.
And it was about saying, okay, well, we do need a little bit more help here. We do need some direction. How could we learn more about it? And even at that time, I was looking to get more input into the business. So we hired a practice manager, and I was pretty keen for her to go away and learn some more. And so I looked at a course for her to do, and that was called Admin Mastery. And I wanted her to go along and do that so that she could learn. And I decided to go along just to support her there.
Mm-hmm.
And what I learned through that was that there was an enormous amount that we could be doing from a business point of view to revolutionize our business from a marketing point of view, client experience point of view, etc. And that's where we really got involved with Clinic Mastery.
Mm. You mentioned leadership a couple of times there, and as much as we've painted it as a beautiful story over the last couple of years, I'm sure it's not without its adversity and not without its challenges. So what are some of the leadership lessons that you've learnt over the last couple of years?
Everyone's different, right? So that's been something that, look, it is obvious, but I think sometimes the fallback is, I feel this way, or I would react like this. Why wouldn't someone act like that, or have these intentions? So that's been a huge learning curve, to just have a bit of a plan for our team and leading a team and doing it in a way that means something to them, where everyone's moving in the same direction. We would do that for a client, and I think every practitioner knows how to do that for a client. But
Mm-hmm.
taking that same approach and putting that same effort into the team was something that I just didn't really know how to do in the past. And I expected it to kind of work out for itself.
Mm-hmm.
But putting the time and effort into learning more about myself and learning more in terms of leadership, doing that internal work, has helped me then go back to the team and deliver more. And in turn, they now can deliver more to our clients.
You've done a ripper job, but from what I know of the culture that you've built, it is, ironically, it's very proactive. So what does being a proactive leader mean to you? What are some of the practical, tangible things that you guys do as clinic owners to lead your team?
Yeah, so it's about, having some values to live by and living those values and being the one that can really display that for the team. So, we've got some values in our team where everything that happens in the business, no one person is, including myself or Lauren or anyone in the business, is bigger than those values. So having the authority for anyone in the team to challenge us or challenge each other, and really make an effort to communicate that we're living through those values day to day, is what basically provides the integrity for our business.
Mm-hmm.
And it also helps me not be the one that's leading all the time, because sometimes that can be a huge load, right? But having some values there to help lead the way, be a bit of a shining light, it not only offers people something to look to when I might not be available,
mm-hmm.
but it also shows other people in the business the way to move forwards and show leadership within their own selves.
That's awesome, mate. And yeah, to have a clinic led by values is a really powerful thing. How do you approach things like vulnerability and transparency? And we all wrestle with that ego of having to try and keep it all together for our team. And we all wrestle with that to varying degrees. So what role does vulnerability play in your leadership?
Massive. I don't really know any other way, Jack. So if you get to know me, my heart's on my sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that being open and sharing and offering people knowledge usually helps people understand. And it usually helps people then ask themselves, well, what's the next step? So if you're vulnerable about something and we can discuss something and everyone's there to understand whatever the issue is, then we talk about how do we move forwards from here. And it's really the only way that I know. And I much prefer it, because every time I've tried to behave any differently, it just doesn't feel good at all. And I'd encourage everyone, being honest is just so relieving. Best way to lead
Easy
as far
though,
as I'm
right?
concerned.
Like, how do you do that when it's not easy?
Give me an example. Like we're talking about a tough topic or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, we've had to navigate. We're recording this podcast in the thick of 2020 coronavirus. So there's difficult conversations that have to be had and difficult calls that have to be made. How do you show up and be authentic and still be vulnerable through that season?
Yeah. So I guess just as I've said, the coronavirus has tested lots of people in lots of ways. It's definitely tested our business. It's definitely tested every single one of our team, and it's tested me personally. So we've had many conversations right from the get-go when we were first learning about coronavirus, and the dialogue has been there right from the start. It needs to be there. I've been extremely proud of our team, the way that we've brought some tough conversations forward. And, I guess largely saying to everybody, this is the issue. This is where we're at. How do you feel about this? What do you see as the best way forward? How can we talk about this together? And let's day by day do everything in our power to, live by our values, not forget our values, remember what we're here for, remember what we stand for. And if for whatever reason we do need to make some adjustments along the way, let's be open to that. But we'll always do it together. We'll always do it within consultation, and we'll move forwards together. That's been our approach, that and the fact that we've made the decision, I guess you could say, to eat last. So we know that our value is in our team, and we love the people that we've got involved in the business. How can we support them to support our community so that the community can support our business? And, throughout this, I've been incredibly grateful for the way that we've handled it. Incredibly grateful for our teams, amazing people.
It's phenomenal, mate, and I'm taking notes here myself. Even the way you're articulating it, it's beautiful. It's that keeping your values clear, keeping open-mindedness and transparency at the forefront, and then leading through questions and collaboration. Yeah, if I was to summarize what you've just explained, I'm sure you and Lauren had a picture in mind of what decisions you would make for Proactive, but asking questions and getting the team to come to that conclusion themselves is such a more powerful way to lead. If we just shift gears a little bit, Danny, I'm thinking about, you mentioned at the top that university is the entry ticket, and you learn podiatry at uni, but you don't learn how to be a business owner. So reflecting on the last couple of years, what do you know now that you wish you knew when you first opened the door and hung up the shingle?
Where do I start? All right. I would seek mentors. That is number one. The way I would answer that question.
What is it about mentors?
Understand. Well, someone who's done it before, someone who's doing it, someone that has an interest in helping other people develop. So if someone came to me, and people do all the time, and they say, Daniel, I have chronic pain, and I'm seeking someone to help me through that, and I can look at that person and say, I've been there, I've done that. I want to help you through this, and this is the way that I'd like to offer you an opportunity to work through it. Would you like to work with me? That is an example of how I can be a mentor for someone that's experiencing a problem that I know about. And seeking a business mentor is something that I wish I had the guts to do earlier on. It was a fear. It was a pure fear. I think when you start a business, you are, number one, asking yourself, is this going to last? Have I made the right decision? Will I be able to afford X, Y, Z? The whole time you've got those questions. And on the other side of those questions, you've got that innate belief that makes you the business owner in the first place, that pushes you along. And I think I probably went so deep into that belief that I maybe didn't ask enough, or was vulnerable enough at that point in time to be open to seeking a business mentor, because it was definitely recommended by people. And I probably decided it wasn't the right time for me.
Okay. What else?
It took me a while. Simply, I needed to learn more about the numbers. I needed to be more analytical rather than being such a feeler and someone who's so focused on intent. I really needed to understand the outcomes of things and to read the outcomes of things so that I was planning rather than reacting.
Yeah, right. That's awesome. It's really insightful, mate. I'm thinking about two different types of listeners to the podcast. There's probably the the early stage clinic owner. They might be solo, they might be rosy-eyed, bushy-tailed, and diving into this clinic owner journey. And then you've got the clinic owner that's been around for years, maybe even decades, has a stable team that's a little bit stale. If you had any words for both the startup and the stale, what would they be?
There's always more to learn, and you can always sharpen the sword. And if you're really interested in delivering for whatever your intention is, whether that's just being there for your community and helping them through aches and pains, or you're particularly passionate about mental health and you've got some real reasons behind that, then my question for those people would be that if you really believe in that mission, if you really believe in that mission statement, could you possibly have a look at yourself and ask yourself, could I learn more here so that I can better lead my team, so that I can better have an impact on the community, so that that mission statement gets lived out and our business is a business for purpose. It's not just a business.
Mate, that's super powerful. That's unreal. It's and challenging to me too, by the way. It's I love the way you ask questions, and then say, is it possible if? And I really like it. It's very abundant, and really appreciate your transparency, your openness, and your insights, your learnings. It's been a phenomenal journey to watch from afar and at times close up, and you've done a ripper job with your team, mate. So really appreciate you sharing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jack.
Listeners, thank you for joining us. I hope you got something helpful out of that. If you'd love to leave us a review or rating or just get in touch, you can do so on any of your players or reach out clinicmastery.com/podcast. But Dan, if people wanted to maybe get in touch with you personally, or they want to have a bit of a peekaboo at Proactive Health and Movement, what are some of the ways they can do that?
Sure. So you can find us on all the socials there. If you look Proactive HM up, or Proactive HM. And if they're personally interested in making contact with me, look me up as Daniel Monteleone on Facebook, and daniel@proactivehm.com.au is my direct email. And they're the two best ways to make contact with me.
Yeah, awesome. Yep. And listeners, absolutely encourage you to get in touch. Don't be afraid to reach out and make a friend and learn from the insights of Daniel and his team at Proactive. We will make sure we link all that up also over at clinicmastery.com/podcast. If you aren't able to jot that down, head to the old faithful clinicmastery.com/podcast and it will all be there. Dan, thank you again for joining us, mate. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Jack.
Listeners, thank you for joining us, and we cannot wait to bring you another episode of the Grow Your Clinic podcast again really soon. But for now, goodbye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Grow Your Clinic podcast. To find out more about past episodes or how we can help you, head to www.clinicmastery.com/podcast, and please remember to rate and review us on your podcast player of choice. See you on the next episode.